Welcome to the South Texas Business Podcast, hosted by SOTEX Board Chair Connie Gonzalez, recorded live before a studio audience at Brooks. All right. Again, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us. I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name is Al Ariola Jr. I have the pleasure of serving as the South Texas Business Partnership CEO and President. Thank you so much, Jim Campbell, and everyone else. I do want to bring to a stage our host, moderator, if you will, for today's panel discussion regarding the upcoming Texas legislative session. If you would please help me welcome to the stage, I'm going to keep bragging about her, the 40 Under 40 Woman of the Year, Miss Connie Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Fall is upon us. Can you feel it? Me either, except for in this conference room, it surely feels a little bit like winter, so we're trying to balance and prepare you for the 2 weeks of winter that are coming up in a couple of months. As Al mentioned, I'm Connie Gonzalez. I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Strategy Officer for Brooks, and so I do want to recognize Brooks and our board members, both our Chairman, Jim Campbell, and our D3 Representative, Pat Hasso, my Brooks board members. Another round of applause for them, please. Because of their awesome support, I get to do this in addition to my couple of hats at Brooks. I also want to recognize past Chairman Mr. Steven Shadrock with Holt Cat, former South San Antonio Chamber of Commerce Chairman. Thank you, sir. Welcome back home. And then we have a really awesome panel for you all today. Another thanks to our two state representatives and our senator for being here today. First, as I call you up, you can make your way up to the stage. I do want to talk a little about and give some background about Representative John Lujan, who represents Texas House District 118. He was first elected in 2016 and then re-elected in November 2021. Please make note of the different committees and how you need to engage him and make sure he's informed so he can advocate for our community. He serves as a member of the Higher Education, the Licensing and Administrative Procedures, and Healthcare Reform Committees. Got that? All right. And he also serves as a member of the Advisory Council on Cultural Affairs. Please give our San Antonio native Representative John Lujan a round of applause. Next up, Representative Liz Campos, representing Texas House District 119. She is serving her first term, a very busy first term, on the Texas House of Representatives, representing not only us here in San Antonio, but Converse, Live Oak, Church, St. Hedwig, and Universal City. I'm scrolling down looking for your committees, Representative Campos. I'll jump ahead to the feminist in me. She is the first woman elected to represent House District 119 and has been doing a really awesome job representing and staying engaged. Here we are. I had it on the separate page. Again, how you engage and make sure to keep her informed. She is a member of the Public Health and Urban Affairs Committees. Next up, our last panelist of the day, our Senator Roland Gutierrez, representing Texas Senate District 19, and he was a former state representative for the area. He serves as chairman of the Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee. He also established the National Warrior Resiliency Center in San Antonio, focusing on PTSD treatment across the state. We're Military City, USA, and we here, where we are Brooks former Air Force Base. So we know we have a lot of representatives or a lot of military veterans in the area, so that's great. He also served on the San Antonio City Council and was instrumental in establishing one of our very great partners represented here today, Texas A&M University of San Antonio. And my last fun fact about him, also a San Antonio native, but I know we have some graduates in the audience, and so he is a graduate of Central Catholic High School. Okay, we have Hugh right here in the front, a Central High School grad. Senator, you have another fellow alumni right there. And so as you know, we have a really busy year coming up with the legislative session. And so if you don't know, a quick plug for SOTEX and the great work that's occurring. We do have the chair of the Government Relations Committee, Hillary Lilly, with SAISD. If you can raise your hand. Thank you, Hillary. And so if you'd like to get engaged and really help and start strategizing for the upcoming legislative session, she's your gal. I know that they're already hard at work figuring out our priorities for this upcoming session and how we're going to coordinate with our area representatives. And so we're going to kick off with a first question for all three of our panelists today, and that's that we have $27 billion in surplus. Where should the state be focusing those funds? We'll start off with our Senator, Mr. Gutierrez.
Well, thank you, first off, for having me. I certainly appreciate the invitation. As you suggest, there's a significant amount of money in surplus. It's also important to figure out how we got that money. I mean, the majority of it, if not all of it, is ARPA money that has come down from the federal government, which has certain belts and suspenders as to how we can spend that money. I would like to be able to have it spent in healthcare because we absolutely need that, and I think that the majority of that money was intended for that. Within our schools, much of the money was meant to go out and fix our air conditioning systems in our schools, make sure that we have the right kind of filtrations systems so that we don't have the problems that we've had in the past. When we have another scare like COVID, we've got to make sure that we have the necessary infrastructure in place. There was much of that money is dedicated also, or at least is intended for certain communication projects, extension of broadband. You still have rural areas, like even in Uvalde or in West Texas, where you don't have very good broadband, and it makes it very difficult for people to communicate, for communities to communicate, for law enforcement to communicate. And so we have significant infrastructural problems in the state of Texas, and we have to really focus on that before we go down this road of trying to keep throwing money at a law enforcement, at an invented law enforcement problem. We need to go back to making sure the state has the best educational system in the country, which we don't. We're 44th in spending, about 44th in performance. We're last in mental health spending in the state of Texas. That needs to change, right? And so we've got to be able to look at where we're lacking and not just, fill in gaps, but look at manner and means by which we're going to excel. And it really is about getting back to basics. There was a time when I was a young man and Texas had the best highway system in the United States. That's not the case anymore. We have a water crisis of infinite proportions that we need to start really looking at. And that needs to be addressed. But when you're looking at all of those things, and I don't want to deviate too much from your question, we also have to look at what's happening, not on the social issues that my friends on the right side of the aisle are always talking about, but on the issues that are affecting us day to day. When you allow an 18-year-old to buy an AR-15 at that age, you've got a significant problem. And so whatever ails us economically, infrastructurally, it's not going to make a difference if your kid's not around. So we have to do some very basic fundamental changes in how we're dealing with those issues as well. And so I guess that's my 2 cents, and I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Campos, same question. We have quite a bit of money, $27 million in surplus. Where do you feel the state should be focusing those funds?
Well, I'd like to echo what the senator said, and our priority should be education and healthcare. I sit on public health, and so this past week we had our committee hearings, and it is really important that we make sure that we continue with the telehealth, especially in the rural areas. After the pandemic, it's really it really helped for us to have telemedicine, so it's important. We also have a shortage of doctors, so we need to figure out what we can do to make sure that we get these individuals that have gone to undergrad, they've gone to med school, they've passed their exams, and there's not enough residency, so that's really important, not just for the urban areas, but also for the rural. We need to, there's a lot of issues at the local level that we need to focus on. Homelessness is a huge issue, and it's just getting worse, which will hurt our economy and our city, so we need to focus on that. I'm very passionate about seniors, so we just need to make sure that we collaborate with the senators, with the congressmen, with the local government, and allocate those monies appropriately, because it's great to have that amount of money, but we just got to make sure that it's appropriated the right way. Thank you.
I haven't had the privilege of being in office like my colleagues have. So I was elected last November. I am a state representative, but one of the things that I've learned going around and meeting with all the folks is that property tax relief, we need that. That's, to me, is like priority. When we have people in my district that can't even live in their homes anymore because they're being appraised out of their homes, something needs to be done there. I also agree that we definitely need to do for education. Having some school districts are a little behind in my district, that's not acceptable. How do we move that forward? What we really need, all of us, is we need to pray for wisdom, because we have that surplus, and what I don't want is because we have extra money to start just spending on everything, but let's put it on the things that are going to make a difference. Child welfare reform is really big for me, and to the point where I meet every Friday, I meet with a group of folks, and we're doing a child welfare reform project that we just implemented in the church, and it's going well, and I want to expand on that. So things like that we can do cost effectively, that's going to make a difference, that allows us to use these tax extra money that we have from this fund to start helping things that are property tax relief, our schools, children. Those things are very, very important. We got to get back so that we can do the basics, and we can do the basics well. I agree, the road system. I remember as a young kid, we drive down the road, beautiful, and now it's tough. Those are projects and spendings that are long overdue.
Thank you, Representative. And so we know that $27 billion, billion with the B, sounds like quite a bit of money, but Texas is a very large state, and we have a lot of priorities. And so I do like your point about making sure that we're prioritizing, that we are collaborating and speaking with our elected officials and making sure that we're on the same page to see how far those funds can go. Representative Lujan, another question for you. Local elected city and county leaders have complained that their ability to govern is under attack by the state government, like tax and budget limitations. How can you help protect our city and county governments from state interference?
So I really want to give that power back to the cities and the counties to spend appropriately. So the way I think that we do that is we put a framework in place that they can operate out of. And there again, what I don't like is we do these one-off bills, and to me it stops the ability to be creative by a city official or a county official, because we tie their hands because we don't want them to do this. And it's a specific little thing. We need to release that and let them be accountable to the voters, right? You guys are going to tell them whether you like them, their policies or not. That's going to come from too many times. Republicans want to push their way, Democrats want to push their way. What we need to do is kind of just sit back, put that framework, and let the people make the decisions. I'm a firm believer in that.
Thank you. Representative Campos, what I did hear from all three of y'all basically the same priorities. Education was, I heard from each of you all, and then health is right up there as well. And so as a member of the Public Health Committee, what lessons do you believe the legislatures learn, and what can they do to respond to the next COVID type of pandemic? God willing, we hope that that doesn't happen.
Well, as bad as COVID was, and we learned a lot, I think that the legislator did well with trying to provide with rent relief, and I'm really honored to be here to be able to serve, because being on Urban Affairs, I was able to be involved and make sure that individuals, got what they needed. I think we did a good job, and so hopefully it doesn't happen, but again, I'm proud to be serving as a legislator and to be helping the community.
Thank you, Representative. As many of us know, and it's unfortunate that we had another scare here in San Antonio with Jefferson High School just this week, but coming off of the tragedy that the Uvalde community faced, Senator, what should the 88th legislator do to avoid another gun shooting tragedy?
Well, there's a lot, first off. Listen, I think that what the folks in Uvalde have been asking for has been just basically the minimum. You don't hear parents saying, oh, we're going to ban guns. They're asking to raise an age limit. You heard Greg Abbott 2 weeks ago try to tell us that it's unconstitutional. That's an out-and-out lie. 18 states have age limits. We have an age limit on handguns. You have to be 21 to buy a handgun at the gun shop. But you can be 18 and go in like nothing, buy an AR-15 on a few days from your 18th birthday, go in the same shop, buy 900 rounds of ammunition, go back to the same shop on day 3, and buy another AR-15, pick up the one that you ordered online. So you can do that in Texas. That needs to end, and I think that the three of us can agree on that. At least I'd hope so, right, Liz? John? So under no certain terms should an 18-year-old be able to access militarized weaponry. That's a piece of legislation number 1. We're going to have to start looking at other common sense gun solutions. Of all of everything that happened this summer, because of the family's advocacy there and in Buffalo and different places, after 30 years we got a federal bill. That federal bill is really going to be a watered-down version of common sense gun solution. It provides for red flag incentives for states that put extreme risk protective orders. So that's if you've got somebody that's made a threat, like the guy that made a threat for the Central kids and the St. Mary's Hall kids, we should probably be able to go into that guy's house right now to see if he's got these kinds of weapons, right? But not one of us can go to the court and say we need to go into his house to see what kind of weapons that he has. The governor of the state of Texas is going to have to avail himself of those incentives. I don't see that happening. So we'll be pushing for extreme risk protective orders. We'll be pushing for age limits. We'll be pushing for a change to the VOCA statute, the Victims of Crime Compensation Fund, to be able to dole out relief to families in a better way. We can't allow this to happen in our communities anymore. I know just about every one of these parents, and they will be advocating across this state so that none of you have to go through what they went through. And none of you want to see the pictures that I've seen, and none of you want to live a day in the life of these parents. They joined a club that they didn't want to be in. So please be active this November, because these issues are extremely important.
I'd like to say something. I just want to thank you, Senator, for all that you have done. You have truly been a fighter, a champion, and I know that it's really taken a toll on you, and I am so grateful to have you fighting for the family, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Senator. And so with that topic, and there's several others where we seem to continue to be divided, there's going to be some new faces in the Bexar County delegation this upcoming year. And so we'll start with you, Representative Campos. How do you believe that will impact the delegation's current dynamic?
Well, I can tell you that the Bexar County delegation, we are always, we've been strong, and I'm so grateful to be a part of them. And I think that we just have to be we have to be open-minded. We have to look outside the box, and we got to do whatever we can to work together, because these issues that we're talking about, they're basic issues, and they make sense. I mean, there is no reason why an 18-year-old should have an assault weapon. So I would hope that we would be able to work together to try to do our best to pass these laws. Better gun laws to protect our families, because we just can't let this continue. We need to make sure that our kids are safe. It's terrible to see the kids, not wanting to go to school. Parents, we saw what happened with Jefferson this past week, and that's just unacceptable, and it just makes sense. And I will tell you, I was on a gun panel a while back, and there was a gentleman that was very hardcore and insisted that the gun laws are fine, which they're not. And so after the panel, I had a conversation with him and pulled him aside, and I explained to him, because he was talking about his child that was 13 years old and that, has always handles these assault weapons, and he was fine with it. And I went into detail because I've got a diverse district, and explained to them that not all kids are the same. And if you've got kids that have mental illness because of the way that they've been brought up, or something has happened in their life that we may not understand, and some of them are angry, so, what do? They get their hands on a gun and they kill innocent people. And so I felt it was important to express how I felt about it, just to kind of try to make him understand where we're coming from, because it just seems sometimes that they don't understand the way that we live. So I just hope that I can continue to have those conversations, and we can make sense of it, and know that it's imperative that we get that gun law passed to where 18-year-olds should not have a war weapon, because that's what it is. It's for war.
Representative Lujan, same question, and you mentioned it in your earlier remarks, the divide between political parties, divide, stubbornness, whatever you would like to call it. There will be new faces regardless representing Bexar County, and so how do you believe that will impact the current dynamic?
Well, we're going to fight them to the end. I'm just kidding. I love Liz Campos. In fact, she was the first one to reach out to me when I was elected. And so you go into these things I felt like I'm a regular citizen, and I'm arguing at the table, over dinner and lunch with other folks about politics and saving Texas and the world. And all of a sudden you get elected, and now I represent a district that's primarily, it tilts a little bit on the D side. And so, I have to do what's right by my district, by my community. And the way I do that to best represent them is to get along with my colleagues. I am so impressed with our Bexar County delegation. Not only am I impressed, but when I go to other cities and when I'm at the Capitol, everybody talks about our delegation, of how tight we are and how good we are. Now, I know most of our reps, not too familiar with the senators, although I've known you for a long time from the city council days when I was a fireman, and I'm going to get to know the senator very well. But working together and finding those common things that we can bring that's going to benefit our community, that's what's important. I don't care D or R, we all care about the kids. We all know that there's a mental health issue. We all know that we have children in our foster care that are suffering. We all know those things. How do we get the solutions? And now I'm confident, now that I'm a little frustrated at the Capitol, because I go to some meetings and they're so long, and we leave and there's no to-dos, I don't run a business like that. I'm a business guy. I have a technology company, and I set up to-dos, I do this, and we put people accountable and we get it done. It's a little bit different in the government. I'm learning it, but I know that working with my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, is the way to get things passed for the benefit of our community. And I think that's probably my strength, is I'm not so hard-headed one side or the other. I want to do what's best for our community, and so I'm glad I'm in a county that has colleagues that are like that.
Senator Gutierrez, anything else that you'd like to add? We know that we can count on you to continue to be vocal for the important topics, but you also recognize that there is quite a bit of different opinions and personalities, if you will. How do you feel like the current dynamic will be affected in the upcoming delegation?
Yeah, listen, we get along just fine in Bexar County, and that's fine. But this is about different ideas, right? We had a Republican Party that 20 years ago that was all about business. I don't know what they're about now. That might hurt some people in the room, but that's the reality. I mean, they're not about fixing things. They're about trying to figure out which books we're going to read. It seems to be that everything that Florida does, that, crazy Ron DeSantis does, Greg Abbott's got to do. And so those are the realities. They started a conversation last session called CRT. Does anybody know what CRT is? Critical race theory. Let me tell you, it's something that's taught in colleges, and it's been taught for 20 years. 20 years. It just teaches people about history and race and how race is involved. But you have a Republican Party that's come down and said, listen, all of a sudden, these people are teachers are teaching this stuff to our kids. Number one, they're not. Going up to Austin isn't about inventing fake news. Going up to Austin is about seeing a problem and fixing it. It's about John saying whether you're going to allow an 18-year-old to have an assault rifle, yes or no. It's not about talking around those issues. We have a lot of things that are broken in this state, and I don't mean to sit here on my soapbox and preach to you, because I'm pretty sure you didn't come to hear that. But I want to fix our mental health problem. I want to fix our hospitals. I want to put, just like we did, put $250 million in a new state hospital building in our community, right, Al? That's going to be a big development for us. Those are the things that we need to be doing. We need to have a heck of a lot better on educational funding. And we need to do a heck of a lot better on health care. We need to do a heck of a lot better on infrastructure. We need to do better. I'll give you one even better. We need to do something better on the border. Republicans like to talk about the border a lot, but everything just seems to be like one stunt after the next. Hell, we've sent more people to Washington and Martha's Vineyard than everywhere else. I mean, I'm not sure who's doing the inviting, Joe Biden or Greg Abbott, but they're sending them wherever they need to go. Listen, Democrats said, hey, you want to fix the border? Let's have technology on the border. Let's put infrastructure that makes sense. They have a cell tower that actually can look in 4 miles in every direction. We asked to do that when they had a border bill come up. Government, look, great Republican said this, Abraham Lincoln. He said, the legitimate object of government is to do for the people that for which they cannot do for themselves. We haven't done that any longer. We haven't done that. I got elected to try to fix specific problems. My goal next session is to try to fix specific problems, not to talk about who's going to what bathroom, or what book some kid's reading, or what gender some kid might think he is. That's what the opposition party wants to talk about. I want to fix the hospitals, I want to fix the roads, I want to fix our schools. That's it. Thank you.
A perfect segue. By a quick show of hands, how many people were able to attend the South Summit keynote speaker with Chancellor John Sharp this past week? Awesome. And so his main message, in a nutshell, when it comes to economic development in South Texas and how can we make the greatest impact, he kept on attributing it to education. I told the board earlier today, one of his several sound bites throughout his speech was, if we have an F school in our neighborhoods and we're not doing anything about it to change that F school to make it D, C, and eventually an A school, we're not doing our jobs. If we have an A school in our community and we're not making sure to promote them, to give them a hug, give them a salt cave session right here at the hotel, applaud them, make them feel appreciated, we're also not doing our part. It all starts with education, and it starts with our teachers who are educating our children. And so, Senator, you talked a little about book bans and critical race theory. Representative, I'm going to give you the similar question I gave you earlier, that the local public schools autonomy is also under continuous attack by state leaders. How do you help protect our public schools from state interference?
Well, I think as a representative, one of the key things that I've been able to do, first of all, just to let you know, I'm a retired firefighter, and I have a technology company, and it's a mature technology company. We're about 500 people strong. And what I've been able to do is get my leadership, which is good and bad. I put my leadership now running the company, and I meet with them Mondays and Tuesdays, and then they make fun of me. They say, go save Texas, the rest of the week. And the sad thing is they're doing very well without me. That kind of hurts a little bit, but it's also good because I got good leaders. But this allows me to go out and meet all the superintendents. The superintendents we have here, I've met with them on a variety of issues, and we're taking constant notes, because when I get back, I think that we really need to support our school districts. And what you said about going, any school district that invites me, and I'm open on the calendar, I go to that. At Somerset, they got an A rating. I'm very, very proud of Somerset High School. I went out there, was part of their celebration. They had I forgot the name of that band that they had, some crazy band out there, but the teachers went wild. It was a fun day. And then I love to award kids and students that are doing great things in their schools. I love doing that. In fact, I've got an open invitation to the superintendents. Tell me when I can bless somebody, bless one of your young people or your teachers, because I think that's so important in our community. But what that's also done, it's allowed me to understand all the nuances, not just from the superintendent, but from the teacher level, from the bus driver level, all the things that are going on. And then with that, say, God, give me that wisdom so that I can use this in the right way to promote our schools, that I can do this so that we can benefit our community. So I think it's real important that as representatives we get involved firsthand, get on the ground with them, and then we can better understand and make all the decisions. But I agree with you 100%. We should be singing those praises. Our schools are doing very, ours on the south side, I see an uptick in all our schools. I'm really proud of the superintendents. All the superintendents, I've walked with them through the different phases of their schools, and I thank you guys for being here today, and we're going to be moving forward on some of the initiatives that we've been discussing.
And a quick plug, we do have represented here Superintendent Soto. Congratulations, and thank many of you all in this room who helped support him in the school district with the bond that just passed, and it will soon be implemented. And make sure to also invite us for the celebratory, especially Representative Lujan, he'll be there. A final question for today, we'll do a quick lightning round, and I'll open it up for some questions in the audience. A lightning round, 30 seconds or less. We'll start off with Representative Campos. What do you expect to be the most pressing priority this session?
Well, again, I think it goes back to education, because our children are our future. But we need to, let teachers teach. We can't have a governor that's going to dictate to them what to do. So education is priority, so we need to continue to get more funding to make sure that the faculties are safe, to make sure that the schools are safe, whatever it is that we need to do. We have to continue with the telemedicine. We need to make sure that we expand on that, and to make sure people are safe and healthy, and just work together and collaborate. I will tell you, I had the privilege of working with Congressman Cuellar, and I'm very grateful to him because he was able to get $2 million and generators for the senior living facilities in House District 119. And I began working with him early on as soon as I got into office, and I feel like I made a difference for the district, and I think it's really important that we all collaborate, state, federal congressmen, county, city, and just continue to do for the community. And again, with the monies the funding that we're going to have, we should be able to accomplish a lot.
Thank you. Representative Lujan, same question, 30 seconds or less. One pressing priority for the upcoming session.
One pressing would be the property taxes, and I'm going to say that, but I know you're different answer a little bit, but also child welfare reform. Man, that's really That really hurts me. And I guess because I'm closer to that, I have 3 adopted boys. I was involved in CASA, the whole foster system. And man, there's such potential that's being wasted by these poor kids because they don't know what's available to them. And how do we fix that? What are we going to do? I've got a laundry list of things I do, and I'll be coming to my colleagues with those things because I think that's going to really, really make a difference. We have so many kids just falling through the cracks every day that have so much potential, and I think it's upon us as a state to make sure that we catch that.
Senator, one priority for the legislative session.
It's just not that, it just doesn't work that way. There's just not one, right? I'll give you 30 seconds, though. So we got to solve gun violence in Texas, and we got to figure out better common sense solutions so that people can actually enjoy their families and bring them up, because when you lose a child, you lose hope. But certainly it's education like it's always been, it's transportation like it's always been, it's health care like it's always been. Let me tell you the biggest looming problem that we're going to have as a state going forward over the next 50 years, and that's water. Jim Campbell knows this. We're going to have to figure out water. It's just where we are. We filed a constitutional amendment where we funded a formula to be able to fund our water development board some years back, and that has done a tremendous work in Texas to solve some of our water projects along the state. But it is, pardon the pun, a drop in the bucket about what we have to do to look at the next 50 and 100 years in Texas.
Final lightning round. You told me what we should be doing or what we should be prioritizing. What should we not be doing in this upcoming legislative session? Senator?
I mean, look, this is really easy. I mean, you guys read the paper. It's just the social stuff. I mean, I don't care what book you read. I don't care. Kids should be able to be taught by teachers, and teachers should be able to, not feel like they have to measure themselves because they are telling, the African American kid, or they're telling, these other kids about how they should be feeling one way or another. I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, where we are in this space on CRT, I'm telling you they're coming after you on books here next session, because it's going to happen. The transgender stuff, the bathroom bills, it's all a bunch of crap. When are you going to start pushing back and saying, I'm sorry, I don't care about that crap. Let's talk about what's important. Education, healthcare, transportation, water, having our kids alive, right? We got to push back against this nonsense.
Thank you. Representative Campos, what should we not be doing?
Well, I think that the governor should not be telling women what to do with our bodies. That is just, and so November is very important, and everybody needs to get out there and do the right thing, because this session, I was a freshman, and it was extremely hard. I mean, we had the pandemic, we had the storm, we had horrible bills throughout the session, we had redistricting, we left to Washington, we came back, we didn't get a lot done. The voter suppression bill got passed, unfortunately. They're trying to suppress our vote, and this session is going to be worse. So, we just have to, again, at the local level, our delegation, we need to work together and just do the best that we can to take care of our community. But again, nobody has a right to tell us what to do with our bodies, because nobody understands what we go through. We are all different, and we all serve a purpose, and we don't need a dictator.
Representative Lujan, if you can wrap us up, what do we not need to be doing in the upcoming session?
Well, man, I tell you what, maybe I'm a little naive or something. I'm hoping it's not the way the senator says, but I'm kind of figuring it probably is that way. But I 100% agree with that. Stay away from that kind of stuff and get back to the basics, man. Property tax relief should be first and foremost. As a business guy, I prioritize everything, right? And the lower stuff, we just let it go. And the stuff that's high priority, that's what we need to get fixed. Property tax, I just talked to you about the child welfare reform. That's big. Our schools, getting them properly funded and making sure they're competitive. And And then small business. I didn't even talk about this. I said on the healthcare committee, I didn't want to be on it because I hate the healthcare stuff. As a company, I have people doing it for me, and then I complain to them when I sign it. That's about all I knew. Now I jumped into it. I've learned that's a headache and a half, and it's killing small business. And I see all kinds of pockets in there that we can address and fix, but there's lobbyists on every side, there's people lining up on every side. But that needs to be fixed because the one that's suffering is the small business person. We're suffering a lot on that, and there's a lot of money being wasted on the healthcare stuff. And to throw more money at that, I don't think that's the answer. If it needs more money, let's get it more money, but let's fix it before we start investing in it. So I think, to answer your question, let's just stop the rhetoric on both sides and get back to the basics can affect the people in Texas and make Texas the great state that it is.
Thank you to each of our panelists. Before I open it up for probably 2 questions, I do want to reiterate, it starts with engagement. It starts with engagement, and that's at the polls. And we have 2 very important elections coming up. November, we have our county judge race on the ballot, and then in May we have even more propositions, and then we have our city council members on the ballot. And so it starts off with making sure that everyone in this room and each of our networks are registered to vote and actually making it to the polls. And so I know at Brooks we have a couple of staff members that were recently deputized, and I am letting you know that if you need them to come over to your school or to your place of business or apartment complex and schedule a time for them to help people get registered to vote, I am offering that, and I offer a lot, or I ask that a lot more of you all get deputized and do your part to make sure that we have a voice at the polls and are also voicing them to our elected officials, the people that we have elected and put in power to share our voices. Now I will open it up for a couple of questions. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Celeste Brown. I'm the Director of Advocacy for Campos Rose Public Schools, and it's great to hear you talking about some broad things in education that need to be addressed, but I have a bit of a more pointed question. As you're all aware, the Public Ed and Higher Ed committees just met 2 days ago discussing teacher retention and rebuilding the talent pipeline. And as Senator Gutierrez mentioned, right, bills that have been passed this past legislative session are impacting teacher morale and their desire to stay within education. So I'd like to ask each of you what your plan is to support keeping teachers in classrooms and helping teachers feel as though they have the room and autonomy and subject matter expertise to teach the truth. Thank you.
So you just saw a recent poll, 80% of our teachers don't want to go back to school to teach. That's a huge, huge problem. How many of you said, I don't really want to go to work? Well, let's be clear. I say I don't want to go to work every day, but because it's a lot of bad news. But I'll tell you that, our teachers love to teach, and they love to be around kids, but it's getting harder and harder for them to simply just do that, to teach our kids, because they have to, there's a whole checklist of stuff that you cannot do. Oh, don't say this, because you're going to get in trouble with the book police. Don't say this because you're going to get in trouble with the CRT police. Don't tell a kid to vote. Don't tell a kid to vote. How do you like that? Because that might get you in trouble. We also need to pay teachers more. We're still in a place in Texas. Look, this is a business group, right? What do each one of you want as businesses? What is a core business? What do you want? You want a great workforce, and the only way you're going to get a great workforce is by improving our schools. Improving our schools means spending more money in our schools, means paying our teachers more, means giving more access to resources to kids. I'll let them answer the rest of this thing, but simply let's work on what we need to do, get some of these things off these boxes that we can and cannot do. Pay teachers more, pay them what they're worth. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Well, I would echo what the senator said, because we need to make sure that the teachers can teach and not be worried about teaching. I mean, I think it's ridiculous when they say, well, teachers now can carry guns. Well, teachers don't want to teach and have to carry a gun to protect their children. That is just unacceptable. Teachers want to teach. We need to let them teach. We need to make sure that they get paid. We need to make sure they have the benefits that they need. We need to protect them, and we just need to, fight hard for them. And so again, going back to November, it's extremely important that everybody gets out to vote.
Yeah, and I would say, I was at the committee, I sat on the higher ed committee, and I took a lot of notes, but one of the things that's really, I kind of knew it, but it just came to light, was all the paperwork that you got to do. Forget the not this, not that, but the paperwork that's mandatory that they've got to fill out. They spend more time having to fill out all this paperwork because it's state mandated, and the state's trying to do something good or make sure something happens, and it's just tons of paperwork. And then the teacher, after a day of school, they have to go out and do paperwork just to get caught up. How do we streamline that? And so I'm looking, in fact, I talked with a few educators that I want them to show me a process map of all those problems so that we can start checkmarking and get rid of, hey, this is not needed, this can combine, this is that. It's unfair what we're doing and asking of our teachers. The teachers want to teach. We have great teachers. Texas produces a lot of teachers that go to other states even, but we're discouraging them when we put them in the classroom. They're not getting to do what they love and want to do because we're putting that burden on them. So how do we streamline that so they can get back to doing what they love, and that's loving children and teaching them, right? That's to me the most important thing.
Another round of applause for our panel today. Last question. If you're an educator in the room, if you can, raise your hand. All of our educators. And please look around the room. These are yes, thank you. Air hug to all of our educators, but I'd ask everyone in this room to pay attention to who raised their hand. And as our businesses and organizations adopt what our priorities are for the legislative session, I'd ask you all to actually talk with them and get a little bit more perspective from those that are boots on the ground. Again, thank you all to our panel speakers. We appreciate y'all being here. Have a good rest of your day.
While I have your attention briefly, what we did present to our representatives and our senator was actually drawn by a McCollum High School student. A beautiful rendition of the Mission Reach. Wanted to share that. Real quick, be sure also to mark your calendars before I let you go. Mark your calendar for our next Southside Networking Breakfast on October 13th. I always see my Harlandale friends at the networking breakfast. Thank you guys for always joining us. And November 3rd, our Legends Gala, where I mentioned we'll be honoring Pat Hasso. We'll also be honoring the Garcia family from Del Rio, Texas, the Julio's Chips, if you guys are familiar with them, Mr. and Mrs. G's, Don Pedro's, and Spurs Sports and Entertainment. So be sure to get your tickets to that. We'll see you guys next month.